Hello and welcome to CVR English. I'm Zinat and you are watching World Updates. Strong winds and dry lightning in the past 36 hours intensified, exciting forest fires and agitated new ones in Chandigarh province. Authorities in western Canada have implored tens of thousands of people to heed evacuation orders. They have warned of difficulties ahead as severe and fast-changing forest fires in the province of British Columbia intensified future.
Thousands of residents in British Columbia were on a high evacuation alert on Saturday after rapidly intensifying wildfires forced the Canadian province to declare a state of emergency. Some sections of a key highway between the Pacific coast and the rest of Western Canada were partially closed on Saturday.
Well, the smoke has been insane.
Residents accustomed to the fire season said this year was unlike any other.
He's sensitive about the smoke too. This year, it's maybe a little scarier than most.
Worst wildfire season on record.
It's completely off the charts this year.
On Friday, a spokesperson for the World Meteorological Organization said the heat and dry weather this summer have contributed to unusually severe wildfires.
British Columbia, fires are raging there. We've seen very, very high temperatures this week, including a temperature of 42.2 degrees Celsius in the town of Lytton, which was a new August temperature record. You don't normally, and you shouldn't normally, associate 42.2 degrees Celsius with Canada, but this is what we are seeing.
The northern Canadian city of Yellowknife had evacuated most of its roughly 20,000 residents by Friday night due to a large approaching blaze. Some homeowners used sprinklers and hoses to try to protect their properties from the wildfires, but with strong winds expected, officials warned the fire could reach the outskirts of the city this weekend. Thousands of residents in British Columbia.
Search and identification efforts were underway in Hawaii as teams worked tirelessly to find victims of wildfires that scorched Maui on August 8, killing at least 111 people, while the search for hundreds of missing people continued in the historic coastal port city of Lahaina, which was almost completely destroyed by the blaze.
Gathered outside of Niger's national stadium to join the armed forces. For the junta, this is a show of popular support for last month's coup, an act of defiance in the face of the threat of military action from the West African body ECOWAS, which wants to reinstate the deposed elected President Bazoum. And the coup leader, General Chiani, delivered a message of his own after meeting an ECOWAS delegation in the capital Niamey.
Neither the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland nor the people of Niger want war and remain open to dialogue. But let us be clear, if an attack were to be undertaken against us, it will not be the walk in the park some people seem to think.
The ECOWAS delegation also met with President Bazoum. He's being held with little access to food or electricity. His health is reportedly deteriorating.
We met him. We heard from him what was done to him. He told us about the problems he's facing that we will take to the leaders that sent us here.
The junta accused him of treason for acting in the interest of a foreign state, alluding to France, the former colonial power.
The will to act militarily is to stop what could be seen as a contagion of coups. There's been coups in Guinea, Burkina Faso and Mali. Countries who carry the ECOWAS mandate, like Senegal and Ivory Coast, want to stop this, but these states are seen as too close to France, the former colonial power. For part of the population, ECOWAS is seen as the armed branch of the former colonial power.
The junta leaders in neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso have sent their military planes in solidarity to Niger's coup leader. General Chiani and his supporters seem to be determined to cling on to power, no matter the consequences. Gathered outside of Niger's national stadium to join the armed forces. For the junta, this is a show of
2 Israelis have been killed in a suspected shooting attack from the occupied West Bank. It happened near the Palestinian town of Huwara, just south of Nablus. The two men, aged 60 and 30, were targeted while they were inside a car wash. Violence in the occupied West Bank has worsened over the past year after near nightly raids by Israel forces and settlers' assaults on Palestinian villages.
It is located in an area which brings together people who really don't like each other. On one hand, the settlers are crossing the Road 60 on their way to Israel, to Jerusalem or to Tel Aviv, and the Palestinians are using the same road, the same route. And it's a point of friction. And what happened in February shows that in February, when the settlers entered Hawara and burned houses, and it was a kind of a pogrom, and this was in retaliation to incident where two brothers, two Israelis, were killed by Palestinians. So it was not a matter of if it will happen again, who is going to get killed. This was the question, and when is it going to happen? So I'm not sure if we know that this was a terrorist attack and not some kind of a criminal action. The settlers are very careful because most of them are ultra-religious, is not to attack on Shabbat, and only if it is self-defense, or they can use the argument of self-defense. Now, to your question, I think that what happens in the global area, and not only in the Middle East, I think that if you look at the global picture, the relationship between Israel and the United States, it is very hard now for the United States to push harder on the Saudis to open an embassy in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. And the second thing is that the Israeli army right now is perceived in the Arab world and the Israeli society as very fragile. And actually, this is not the time to do business with Israel. This is unprecedented that the President of the United States refuses to see the Prime Minister of Israel, and that thousands of Israeli veterans pilots are refusing to serve in the army. So I don't see that the Saudis or any other Arab neighbors would like to shake hands with a prime minister who is considered pariah in the United States and in Europe. It is
Several people were killed and dozens wounded when a Russian missile struck a central square in the historic northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv. 7 people, including a 6-year-old girl, were killed. 144 wounded and 41 were in hospital after a Russian missile struck a central square in the historic northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv on Saturday. Ukrainian officials said, "I am sure our soldiers will give a response to Russia for this terrorist attack," President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his nightly video address, delivered early on Sunday at the end of a visit to Sweden. A notable response.
Several people were killed and dozens wounded when a Russian missile struck a central square in the historic northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv on Saturday. That's according to the Interior Ministry, which said people had been on their way to church to celebrate a religious holiday when the strike took place. The wounded included both children and police officers. President Volodymyr Zelensky posted a short video on Twitter showing debris scattered across a square in front of the regional drama theatre, where parked cars were heavily damaged. Chernihiv is a city of leafy boulevards and centuries-old churches about 90 miles north of the capital, Kiev. Russia has attacked Ukrainian cities far from the front line with missiles and drones as part of the invasion it launched in February last year. Several people were killed and dozens wounded when a Russian missile struck a central square in the
For the 2024 US presidential elections, former President Donald Trump is planning to skip the first Republican presidential debate. Former President Donald J. Trump plans to upstage the first Republican primary debate on Wednesday by sitting for an online interview with the former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, according to multiple people briefed on the matter. In the past 24 hours, Mr. Trump has told people close to him that he has made up his mind and will skip the debate in Milwaukee, according to two of the people briefed on the matter. United Nations peacekeepers are speeding up their withdrawal from northern Mali as the security situation deteriorates a week ago. 6 UN troops and dozens of fighters from an armed group were killed in confrontations near a UN base. The military government has pushed the UN Security Council's mission to leave the country before the end of the year.
UN peacekeepers in Beir in northern Mali are rushing to pack their bags, dismantle equipment, and shut down their operation. Some are from Ivory Coast, others from Bangladesh. Their objective was to protect the historic city of Timbuktu from ISIL and Al-Qaeda fighters. But they're being forced to leave before completing their mission. In June, Mali's military-led government called for the withdrawal of the UN peacekeeping force known as MINUSMA, saying there was no peace for them to keep, accusing the UN of inaction in the face of attacks and blaming it for the deteriorating security situation. The head of the mission disagrees.
The mission did a very good job. Of course it's not perfect, but we worked with devotion, sincerity and courage, and we paid a high cost. 300 of my colleagues have lost their lives and 700 were injured serving Mali, so we feel we have done a lot.
Not enough, says junta leader Assimi Goïta. He believes the country is better off without the international peacekeeping force, but with the help of Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group. Human rights organizations accuse Malian soldiers and Russian fighters of war crimes, including rape, torture, and the killing of civilians they're meant to protect.
The
Malian state and the Malian army will try to take over those UN positions, which appears to make sense, but given the context and the stalling peace process, their presence may increase existing tension.
As the UN force was pulling out, Al-Qaeda fighters attacked the compound in Beir, injuring several peacekeepers. Since there's been fierce fighting, armed groups against the Malian army and Russian mercenaries, each side trying to gain control of the compound, looking to replace the peacekeepers. And caught in the middle are the people of Timbuktu. Benton Monaghan, Al Jazeera. UN peacekeepers in Beira in northern Mali are rushing to pack their bags, dismantle equipment, and shut down their operation. Some are from Ivory Coast, others from Bangladesh. Their objective was to protect the historic city of Timbuktu from ISIL and Al-Qaeda fighters. But they're being forced to leave before completing their mission. In June, Mali's military-led government called for the withdrawal of the UN.
Guatemalans are heading to polls today in a presidential runoff. Voters will choose between Congressman Bernardo Arevalo of the Progressive Seat Movement and Sandra Torres, a former First Lady representing the Conservative National Unity of Hope. People from Africa and the Middle East often find it difficult to settle in Poland and become part of the community. Poland has also accepted more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees, but many have found their paths to acceptance easier, leading to accusations of racism and xenophobia. The UN has urged Poland to end the very different treatment of Ukrainian and non-Ukrainian refugees.
This football pitch is a refuge, an outlet to vent, and a place to find help. Life isn't easy for people of African descent in Poland, a country that is more than 96% white. Nigerian-born Arinze set up this group for black people to express themselves in a public space. He's been racially profiled and violently attacked.
They called me monkey. What are you doing in Poland? Go back to Africa.
He had to close his business because of what he calls racism and xenophobia.
Life about black people here in Poland is very difficult. It's very difficult in every aspect. They don't want to give apartment to Africans. We know we are black. We just need to accept that we are all human beings. So it's all about acceptance, just to accept who we are. I'm proud of who I am, and I'll always be black.
Arinze is a Polish national. He says life is even more difficult for refugees and asylum seekers. According to the UN, non-Ukrainians don't enjoy the same legal protections. Poland has accepted more than 1 million refugees.
Maybe easiest for us to find job and have some kind of help, but what I see about other refugees, like they have more problems when people from our kitchen, like not from Slavonic group, try to find flat and they couldn't. I would like people feel what we feel in general, that we here not because we want to, like it's just life decided that we should be somewhere else, no?
And that acceptance is what all refugees want, wherever they come from. Shama bin Javed, Al Jazeera, Warsaw.
In an interesting development in U.S. presidential race, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Indian-American entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy find themselves tied at the second place in the Republican presidential field. Vivek Ramaswamy seems to be the choice, with GOP supporters who seem to be favoring the newest entry to the Republican presidential candidate race in a new poll. Pakistan hit by worst floods in 3 decades. Mohsin Naqvi, the interim Chief Minister of Punjab, described the scenario and promised that all-out measures would be taken to stop losses and destruction brought on by a flood that would be unprecedented in 35 years in the river. As a result of the frightening increase of the Sutlej River, several areas of Punjab are preparing for a potential flood. Thousands evacuated due to water level surge in Sutlej River in Pakistan. The Federal Investigation Agency (FIA) arrested Shah Mahmood Qureshi from his home in the federal capital in the Kaifer leak case under the Official Secrets Act of 1923 minutes after he unambiguously stated in a news conference on Saturday that Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf founding chairman Imran Khan was irreplaceable and that the party was united under his vision.
Has also been arrested by the FIA in connection with the Cypher case. Umar's arrest comes hours after another former PTI leader alleged that police personnel abducted her daughter. Shireen Mazari, a former federal minister, accuses Pakistan police officials of abducting her daughter Iman Zainab Mazari Hazir from the latter's house early Sunday morning. She alleges that the officials were quote-unquote dressed in plain clothes. Shireen Mazari has termed the alleged abduction as an act of state fascism. Now, Sunday's twin arrests come after former Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was detained on Saturday and taken to the federal agency's headquarters in Islamabad. He has now been sent to 14 days physical remand by an Islamabad court. Analysts opine that these arrests are being made to tighten the noose around Imran Khan and to put a stop to his political career. The World Cup winning cricketer turned politician is facing a barrage of cases.
Niger's coup leader Abdurrahmani Tijani has proposed a 3-year transition to civilian rule after meeting a delegation of West African leaders and warned that any attack on the country would not be a walk in the park. For those involved, General Abdurrahmani Tijani, speaking on national television late on yesterday, gave no details on the planned transition of power, saying only that the principles for the move would be decided within 30 days at a dialogue to be hosted by the ruling military council. The junta is continuing to rally support in the capital and has called for a mass mobilization in the face of threats of military action by ECOWAS.
Search and rescue teams with dogs and heavy equipment sifted through the charred remains of Lahaina over the weekend as the search for victims continued in the aftermath of wildfires that devastated Maui. Task Force leader Todd Maglioka said teams were searching every address for human remains.
Big search area, devastating fire. I've not seen anything like this in my entire 30 years in the fire.
Well, that was our wrap-up bulletin. For more news and updates, keep watching CVR English.